I mean, you can tell me. You didn't really sanction all 3 of them, did you?
Garth's got 3 weeks to become their best friend.
It'll be a problem.
Sometimes the only way to uncover crime
Have you any idea of the distress this causes to people close to you?
is to go undercover.
The operation suddenly speeded up.
You haven't even unpacked from the last job yet.
But when you're in this deep,
One of my men is missing. You think I care about cautions and lawyers?
it's more than a living.
How far does Liam go? Can't leave me now.
It's a way of life.
My marriage might be falling apart. At least I've got some new kitchen units.
New partners in crime. Nick Berry, Stephen Tompkinson. In Deep, a new crime double starts Monday, 19th of February on BBC One.
This is Diane,
So what are you in real life then? Married or single?
a wife, a mother,
Single.
You lying cow.
and a stewardess
I've got a flight tomorrow.
Since when?
with a secret double life.
How convincing do you think we'd be as man and wife?
Alice Evans,
You're married already.
What's the difference?
This is wrong.
in a story of a woman
Is Mum there? It's Jack.
with 2 lives
Who's Jack?
and 2 loves.
Now tell me I am not romantic.
Jesus, what did I tell you? Calm down, Carol. I'll beat you to it.
And the writer of Clocking Off.
Who are you talking to?
The Best of Both Worlds starts next Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
BBC One joins BBC News 24 at a few minutes after the late night forecast now from Helen Young.
Hello, welcome to Weather View. Well, during the last 24 hours, we've seen some very wet weather across central areas. In fact, in Capel Curig in North Wales, 41 millimetres fell in 24 hours until Sunday evening. That's practically 2 inches of rain. It's all due to a weather front that's been around for quite a while, and it's still going to be waving its way around central areas overnight tonight. And that means there's going to be more wet weather across Wales and also northern England. In fact, overnight tonight and into Monday, we could see as much as 50 millimetres falling in those areas. That's another couple of inches of rain. Of course, the ground is saturated. We don't need any more rain, and it does mean there is a high risk of disruption across those areas due to flooding. Now tonight, to the south of that area, it is going to be a mild night, temps around 8 to 10 degrees, although we will find gale force winds through the English Channel, certainly for a good part of the night. Further north of that weather front, it will be a colder night, but still fairly mild compared to what we've seen recently. Temperatures at the lowest getting down to about freezing in some of the sheltered glens. Now into Sunday morning, we're going to find that rain gradually heading its way southwards during the day eventually clearing from the southeast, but it probably will be late on in the day, if not into the evening, before it clears away from Kent, Sussex and parts of Essex. Further north, it will be a dry afternoon, as you can see. So gradually things will improve during the day as that rain heads its way southeastwards, the sunshine coming out in quite a few areas, with just 1 or 2 showers for the Northern Isles. It will be a cooler and fresher day generally, temps around 8 to 9 degrees in those northwesterly winds. Now into Tuesday, we keep a good deal of dry and fine weather around, just some drizzle perhaps in the far north, accompanied by some gale force winds. But with these clearer skies by night, it means we will see a return to frost and also some fog. So on Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, some fog clearing during the morning, but generally dry and fine. Into Thursday, this weather front will bring some rain into probably mainly northern and western areas. As it heads southeastwards, it will be a very weak feature indeed. And in actual fact, by Friday, we're back to dry and settled conditions once more. As we head away from the cloudy skies in the United Kingdom, you can see where the sunshine's been for the end of the weekend, down through the Mediterranean. Although at the eastern end here, we have some unsettled weather as well. It's all tied in with this area of low pressure, and it looks as though it's still going to give some rather unsettled conditions into the start of the working week. The best of the sunshine will be further west for Portugal and also Spain. As you head further northwards, this is where you pick up the cloudier skies and also the rain. Well, further afield into Australia, we've got a tropical cyclone that's made landfall. It's now to the south of Darwin. This one is called Winsome. It looks as though it will be dying away during the next couple of days, but still giving some rather windy and wet weather for a time. Further south of that, well, dry and also sunny. Bye for now.
Next week on BBC One. On Monday, the pressure is on.
Welcome to The Weakest Link.
Then a new crime double, Silent Witness with Amanda Burton.
The body of a woman has been found.
If she was found 100 years from now, she'd still live pretty much the same.
Tuesday brings love to Holby City.
You know what you need? Good women to look after you.
And Silent Witness reaches a dramatic conclusion.
Swear I didn't kill her.
It's entertainment all the way on Wednesday with 1,000 to 1.
One lucky winner takes home an incredible 1,000 prizes.
And the Variety Club Awards. Then on Thursday, UEFA Cup football with Rome versus Liverpool in Match of the Day Live. Double comedy on Friday with Office Gossip.
I want you to take me to places I've never been before.
Really? What, like some Burnley?
Followed by Adrian Mole.
You're not having a baby, are you?
The condition my tubes are in, hardly.
And don't forget...
Join us 6 nights a week for the BBC 10 o'clock news.
That's the lineup next week on BBC One. Now on BBC One, we follow the news through the night with BBC News 24 and Clarence Mitchell.
The Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat has arrived in Cairo for talks on forming a united Arab stance following the election last week of Ariel Sharon as Israeli Prime Minister. The Egyptian Foreign Minister Amir Moussa has already called on Mr. Sharon to revise what he called his extreme position towards the Palestinians. Earlier, Mr. Sharon held a second meeting with his defeated rival Ehud Barak in an attempt to form a unity government.
For the second time since Tuesday's election, the incoming and outgoing Prime Ministers met to discuss forming a national unity government. There's going to be plenty of hard bargaining ahead. But the man tipped to become Foreign Minister in any such administration says he's reasonably optimistic.
Sharon has offered the Labour Party 2 out of the 3 most important portfolios, which is Foreign Affairs, Defence and the Treasury. And we shall have to select 2 of them if a national unity government will be formed.
Mr. Barak has presided over what could be one of his last cabinet meetings. He knows his Labour Party is in disarray following his election defeat. Still, he and his colleagues have, according to Israeli radio, formally declared his peace proposals in the last round of talks with the Palestinians are now null and void. That'll help in the coalition talks with Mr. Sharon. It won't help in resuming talks with the Palestinians. In the West Bank town of Ramallah, the scene of some of the worst recent flare-ups between the Israelis and Palestinians, one senior Palestinian official has been airing his gloom.
He wants to keep his occupation over Jerusalem. He wants to keep the occupation in the Jordan Valley. He wants to maintain and beef up settlements. And then after all of this, to maintain the status quo of his occupation, He wants the Palestinians to come and accept the status quo. Forget it.
In Hebron, Hassan Mohammed Musallam holds his head as a Palestinian court issues its sentence of death against him for collaborating with the Israelis. He protests his innocence, but the cheers from the court which greeted the sentence underline the level of anger which still exists here. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Israel tightened security again. An explosive device had gone off near a military vehicle on the way to the Jewish settlement of Kfar Drom. Yet another illustration of just how tough the challenge is for Mr. Sharon if he really is going to deliver on peace and security. Nick Childs, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, meanwhile, Israeli authorities say they've arrested a British citizen on terrorism charges. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says Jehad Shuman was recruited by the Lebanese guerrilla organization Hezbollah. He's been in custody in West Jerusalem since January the 5th. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Ukraine for talks with President Leonid Kuchma, who's facing increasing pressure to resign. Thousands of demonstrators are gathering in Kiev for another rally demanding Mr. Kuchma's resignation over his alleged involvement in the murder of a journalist. The president has sacked 2 of his security chiefs in response to the crisis, but Mr. Kuchma denies any part in the crime.
Turmoil at the heart of Central Europe. Ukraine's president is fighting for his political life. His people are telling him it's time to go. At the core of the crisis, evidence that Leonid Kuchma is implicated in the disappearance of an investigative journalist. Georgi Ronradze, shown here grilling the president in a live TV debate, was last seen in September. 2 months later, a headless corpse was found in a forest north of the capital, Kiev. DNA testing shows beyond reasonable doubt that the body is his. A former presidential bodyguard then produced the bombshell that shattered President Kuchma's world. A secretly recorded audio tape of a foul-mouthed conversation between the president and his security chiefs. Mr. Kuchma appears to suggest that they arranged for the journalist to be kidnapped. The recording outraged Parliament and Ukraine. The political opposition says the situation resembles Yugoslavia in the run-up to the resignation of Slobodan Milosevic.
Very similar. That's why we have appealed to people, to everyone living here, stating that we cannot live anymore like we live.
The opposition to Mr. Kuchma has set up a permanent camp in the center of Kiev. It plans to stay there until the president resigns. Leonid Kuchma is in eastern Ukraine tonight for a meeting with his Russian counterpart, President Vladimir Putin. He'll be hoping for rather more than just moral support. Most people here, though, wish he'd go for good. Robert Parsons, BBC News, Kiev.
Nationalists in Croatia have stepped up their protest against the government over its moves to investigate a retired general, Mirko Norac, on suspicion of war crimes. Around 100,000 demonstrators rallied in the Adriatic port of Split to demand new elections and an end to cooperation with the War Crimes Tribunal at The Hague. Many Croatians regard General Norac as a hero of the country's war of independence.
The coastal town of Split has always been a hardline nationalist stronghold, a natural meeting point for the 100,000 who gathered to protest against the investigation of General Norac for war crimes. His name was the battle cry. A culmination of 4 days of rallies spearheaded by war veterans. The government has called it all a right-wing plot. The demonstrations have had strong support from the nationalist leadership, the former ruling party, the HDZ. At the demonstration, party members were very much in evidence. Under the late President Franjo Tudjman, the HDZ was unwilling to examine Croatian war crimes during its war of independence from the former Yugoslavia. It now condemns the year-old reformist government of delving into that issue, accusing the coalition of betraying the nation. Increasingly, the case of General Norac, who is still in hiding, is being hijacked by the right for political purposes. The HDZ leadership has called for the coalition government to stand down, a view the crowd seem to agree with.
This government is not good for Croatian people, so it seems that we will have to build a new Croatia, a better Croatia, which will be better for all of us, for the interest of all people, not just the interest of some individuals.
With the intensity of feeling very much in evidence, the issue has now become a test of strength for the government. It has rated well in recent opinion polls, but its failure to improve people's living standards, allied with this case, could signal a change in mood. Dimitra Luthra, BBC News, Zagreb.
The British yachtswoman Helen MacArthur has become the fastest and youngest woman ever to sail single-handedly around the world. At the age of just 24, she took second place in the Vendée Globe race when she arrived back at Les Sables d'Olonne on the western coast of France, 24,000 miles after she set sail.
No fanfare, no fireworks, just an ecstatic punching of the air from Helen MacArthur as she passed the finishing line. For the statistically minded, it had taken her 94 days, 4 hours, 25 minutes and 40 seconds. Her first human contact came just a few moments after that. And then came yachting's equivalent of a lap of honour. Helen MacArthur, 24 years old, had cruised into the record books, the youngest, fastest woman to sail solo round the world. And the thousands who turned out to greet her had lived through every stage of this epic adventure. She'd given up her position to go to the aid of a fellow competitor. Her vessel was badly damaged when it hit a submerged container. She'd navigated past icebergs. But alongside, it was now ice champagne that she had to contend with.
It just feels like too much. It's like you can never imagine both to do the race and to be here right now. The best moment is probably right now, and the worst moment is going to be in about 30 seconds time when I have to get off the boat and walk up the pontoon, and I don't want to say goodbye to her.
But her relieved parents have no doubt that she'll be back on board a boat soon. When eventually the time did come to move onto the pontoon, her 5'2" frame quickly disappeared into the melee. You can be sure that dry land will be but a punctuation mark in Helen MacArthur's already extraordinary career. John Sopel, BBC News, Les Sables d'Olonne.
John Sopel reporting. Well, shortly after Helen MacArthur stepped onto dry land for the first time, she faced another hurdle, the hundreds of journalists who'd come to see her cross the finishing line. And she described what it was like being on her own for so long.
If you say to someone, you know, there's someone on their own on a boat in the middle of an ocean, I think pretty much anyone has an image in their mind of what that must feel like. Be it nice flat calm seas or big storms with icebergs around, everyone has an image, and you don't have to be a sailor to understand that. In fact, it's not really even about sailing. I feel very much that I hope that what people have followed, what people are interested in, is just the story that if you really have a dream, you can make it happen, and that's what I feel is the most important message I have. It's not really about the sailing, it's not really, I mean, this is a sailing race, sailing is everything to me, it's my life, it's been my dream, but in a way it's just to say that if you really want to do something, you can, and I just happen to choose to do it in a boat.
Helen MacArthur. This is BBC News. 40,000 trapped in Guinea in what the UN calls the worst refugee crisis in the world. Islamic rebels are blamed for a village massacre in Algeria. And still to come, volunteers struggle to save 50 small whales from stranding themselves on a Japanese beach. The US Secretary of State, Colin Powell, has promised that the Bush administration will do everything it can to find out why an American submarine hit and sank a Japanese trawler off Hawaii. 26 people were rescued, but US Navy aircraft and boats are still searching for 9 people who are still missing, including several Japanese students.
Towed into Pearl Harbor in Hawaii by the US Coast Guard, the USS Greenville was showing the scars of the collision, which has left 9 Japanese missing in the Pacific Ocean. The rudder damaged by the blow it inflicted when the submarine tore into the Japanese fishing vessel's engine room. Along the hull, long gashes and a dent, The damage, the US Navy says, is only superficial. There's no explanation of why the collision occurred. The Greenville was rehearsing an emergency surfacing procedure when it collided with the Ahimi Maru. From the US Secretary for Defense came a reiteration of the apologies that have flowed from administration and military officials.
The Secretary of State has spoken to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Japan. I have spoken to the Minister of Defense, Mr. Saito. And in each case, we have expressed the President's apologies and deepest regrets over this terrible, tragic incident. And as you know, the Coast Guard and the Navy are continuing a search and rescue effort.
The submarine's captain has been reassigned. 2 investigations have been launched. The US Coast Guard is sweeping the crash area with ships and aircraft. Search conditions are good, but survivors will have been in the water for a long time now. How long the search and rescue teams will stay out has not been disclosed. Johnny Diamond, BBC News, Washington.
The Chief of the British Defence Staff, General Sir Charles Guthrie, has said he believes the United States will reduce its military role in Europe under President Bush. Speaking to the BBC before retiring later this week, General Guthrie said that Europe must increase its armed strength as America becomes increasingly involved in other regions.
British and Italian troops training in Kosovo. Firing his last salvos before retiring this week, Britain's top soldier says Europe needs to do far more in its own defence. He said Europeans have nothing to be proud of and have been relying on NATO out of weakness. The new American administration has other priorities.
But the Americans are going to be preoccupied in lots of things around the world which we don't want to get involved in, and there will be some things in Europe which they don't want to, and I think they're going to do less. If we don't do more, they're going to do much less. I don't think we will ever close the gap completely, but I think we can do more, which will be of great help to the alliance.
Sir Charles leaves a very different army from the one he joined 44 years ago. Women are now being tested for a front-line fighting role, the only significant job still closed to them. The outgoing Chief of the Defence Staff is strongly opposed.
The Chiefs of Staff have this job of making sure that our country has the best possible forces for when times are really bad, when people are being killed, when people are frightened. And I wonder whether the country is really ready to see women killed.
Socially conservative but subtle over European defence, Sir Charles Guthrie has been unusually willing to speak his mind in public. David Loyne, BBC News.
Hundreds of villagers in central Java have ignored warnings and left evacuation centres to return to their homes around Indonesia's volcanic Mount Merapi, as experts said an eruption was still possible. Volcanic activity increased on Saturday when Mount Merapi began releasing clouds of steam and streams of hot lava. It's one of the world's most active volcanoes, which last erupted in 1994, killing 60 people. Police in Britain have arrested more than 80 animal rights campaigners after several sites belonging to drugs and chemical companies were vandalised. Police said the activists smashed windows and destroyed machinery at a research laboratory owned by the German chemicals giant Bayer in Stoke Poges. In another attack, 150 protesters entered a site owned by the pharmaceutical conglomerate GlaxoSmithKline. The protests were part of coordinated action against companies associated with allegations of cruelty to animals. The first attempt to carry out a culling of wolves in Norway has been disrupted by animal rights protesters. There are fewer than 100 grey wolves in Scandinavia, and the group said it will continue to disrupt further attempts to track down the wolves. The Norwegian government has allowed the cull after complaints from local sheep farmers. The hunters have been given until April to kill the wolves. A massive rescue operation has been taking place in Japan to save 50 whales stranded on a beach. Rescuers tried to free them after they were beached in Ibaraki province, 100 kilometers from Tokyo. At least 20 of the whales have died.
They're hundreds of miles off course. These melon-headed whales are normally found off the shores of the Philippines. On Sunday, 50 were washed up off the coast of Japan. They were among a group of 300. Early morning surfers came across the whales. Soon police and local people helped to refloat them. In all, 28 were dragged back into the water. Another 2 were sent to a local aquarium. but 20 died before they could be rescued. Scientists are now investigating how this particular group came to be there. It's thought they may have lost their bearings while fishing in the area, or they may have been chased ashore by predators, a killer whale perhaps. This kind of rescue operation is becoming a growing trend in Japan, a country which is more widely recognized as a whale hunting nation. Andrew Clark, BBC News.
The crews of the Space Shuttle Atlantis and the International Space Station Alpha have entered the billion-dollar science laboratory Destiny for the first time. Destiny has now been attached to the space station and the astronauts have begun installing equipment. It's the most expensive and intricate part of the station. Its 13 computers will enable NASA to control the whole operation in 2 months' time, after taking over from Russia. Well, back down here on Earth, one of America's best-known sports stadiums has been demolished in a spectacular 17-second implosion rather. After years of being ridiculed as an ugly relic, thousands of onlookers watched the demolition of the Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh, the 30-year-old home of the town's baseball and American football teams. The mammoth structure is being replaced by 2 separate stadiums nearby. Scientists in Britain and America have released the latest draft of the complete human genome, the so-called Book of Life. One of the major surprises is that we each have between 30 and 40,000 genes. That's far fewer than was previously thought. But publishing our genetic blueprint promises to revolutionize the treatment of some disease and our ability to reverse genetic disorders.
These blobs of colour are a tiny part of the biological instruction manual to make a human being, our genetic code. Researchers here in Cambridge and the US are flabbergasted by their latest discovery, that we have just a few more genes than a mouse. But does that make understanding how humans work any easier?
We're that step nearer being able to look at all the component parts of the human body and figuring out what they do. And it's going to be a huge task. It's not actually magically simplified because we have somewhat fewer genes, because we still have to find out exactly how all of them work and how they're controlled.
So it's not the number of genes that's important, but how they interact. For example, 6-year-old Theo has an inherited genetic disorder, a fault in his genes, which may mean he'll never walk. But genome research may one day lead to improvements in his condition.
I can see it in the distance as something that could well happen in 5, 10 years' time. And I think I'm realistic in that, you know, maybe Theo could have some sort of treatment.
And scientists are confidently predicting a revolution in healthcare as a result of genetic research, and in virtually every field, but especially cancer.
I would be extremely surprised if children being born today did not have a much better chance of surviving their cancer than people of our generation. There will be a major transformation of cancer treatment over the next 20 years.
Scientists also now know that all humans are 99.8% genetically identical. What they still don't know is exactly how our genes work. There are 500 scientists here at this massive genome campus in Cambridge, piecing together the blueprint of human life, and thousands more in the United States. And bit by bit, it is giving up its secrets. It has awesome potential with regards to medical breakthroughs, but these will take, tantalizingly, the next 5 to 25 years to deliver. Fergus Walsh, BBC News, Cambridge.
A reminder of the main news again this hour. Tens of thousands of people are fleeing contested areas of Guinea in what the United Nations has described as the world's worst refugee crisis. And reports from Algeria say at least 27 people have been killed in an attack on a shanty town. I'm Clarence Mitchell, and this is BBC News.
Hello there. Well, some good news on the way. We've got a high pressure building, which means a lot of dry, fine and a lot of wintry sunshine as well on the way for Tuesday. Actually, it makes its start later on this afternoon. What also makes it start is this weather system, which we saw bring quite a lot of rain through central and northern parts of England and Wales and running across towards the Irish Sea. Now that makes its way down towards the near continent, slips its way southeastwards. By Tuesday, as I mentioned, that high pressure, the dominant feature, we might just see some fresher winds, as you can see indicated by these tightly packed isobars to the north and west of Scotland. And again, on Wednesday, the high pressure is still a dominant feature, as are those freshening winds out across the west. We might just see a thickening of the cloud as well through western and northern parts of Ireland and Scotland. But bringing you back to those winds, as you can see, a southerly flow initially, so that's keeping those temperatures fairly mild. But those winds do gradually build up, indicated by these larger arrows later on into the Thursday, Friday and Saturday picture, with quite a blustery day on the cards as we end the week on the early hours of Saturday morning. Now, bringing you back to the present, of course, throughout the night what we'll see is this band of rain and clouds steadily moving down towards the south and the east. But a wee word of warning on that, we are expecting quite persistent and heavy rain throughout the night and later on this morning for central and northern England and Wales. Could pose a few problems later on through that drive time period. We are expecting around about 50 millimetres, which is a good inch and a half, which could lead to localised flooding as well, but we will put some fine tuning on that. So it's a bit of a north-south split today. What we've got is a fair amount of dry and bright weather through Ireland and Scotland, just clipping northern parts of England there. We've also got some fairly blustery showers to the northern and western Isles of Scotland, but elsewhere this misty, murky and quite a damp day on the cards. That heavy and persistent rain really doesn't go away, as I mentioned, through that drive time period, hazardous driving conditions. And what happens later on by midday, it makes its way down towards the south and the east, just clipping through Lincolnshire, the western part of the Midlands and down towards the south coast of England. And then by the late afternoon and early evening picture, we'll see that rain band just clipping the Kent and Sussex coastline. But ahead of that, quite a lot of dry and bright weather for the late afternoon picture. What we'll see this afternoon as well is a freshening of those temperatures, particularly compared to Sunday. Scotland really between 5 and 8 degrees Celsius, and the best of the temperatures through the Channel Islands at 11, which is about 52 Fahrenheit, not bad for this time of year. An ideal day if you are into a bit of racing. Don't forget Hereford and Southwell are going ahead. 7 degrees Celsius, similar conditions, quite a lot of sunshine about, and you won't need to take your brolly, but what you will need are your sunglasses perhaps. You won't need them later on tonight though, with the West Ham v Coventry match at Upton Park kick-off at 8 o'clock. It will be a dry night though, feeling quite fresh if you are out and about. As I mentioned, that kicks off around about 8 o'clock tonight. Now, if we take you into tomorrow's picture, again, this dry and bright, fine weather, a lot of wintry and watery sunshine about. Temperatures a wee bit fresher than we felt of late, but into Scotland, that's where they're going to get that miserable, damp, quite drizzly day through the western and northern Isles, and you will have to put it with those southwesterly gales as well. They continue on to Wednesday with that front just draped across western parts of Northern Ireland and down towards Southern Ireland with that thickening of the cloud. You might just see the odd spot of rain and those southwesterly gales still continuing. Into Thursday, they actually make their progress down towards the Western Isles, but again, this is the weak front we'll see, just bringing again a thickening of the cloud and the odd drop of rain through central parts of England up into northern England and Scotland. Elsewhere, dry and bright.
Breaking the news.
Michael Stowe is to stand trial again.
Japanese detectives have found parts of a woman's body.
Prime Minister Ariel Sharon said Palestinians must stop terror and violence.
It's the first time that the three have appeared together in public.
24 hours a day, BBC News 24.
Interview. An examination.
Was it love at first sight?
Definitely. She's gorgeous.
To discover the experiences.
People said, but your behaviour was so bad. I said, I know, it's hysterical.
Opinions.
Musicians are a very hurt bunch.
Of a personality.
It's Tom Jones. I hope I'm pregnant by the end of this show.
Parkinson, the definition of a good interview. A new series starts with Dolly Parton and Denise Lewis, Saturday at 9:05 on BBC One.
Hello, good morning. This is BBC News 24 with me, Clarence Mitchell. It's exactly 1:30, the main news stories. Good reason to celebrate. Ellen MacArthur back on dry land after 24,000 miles at sea. Scientists reveal the human genetic code and say we have far fewer genes than was originally thought. Graduates could have their student loans paid off if they decide to become teachers. And Paul Hunter wins the Benson and Hedges Masters snooker title in a dramatic final fray. Good morning. Ellen MacArthur has become the fastest and the youngest woman ever to sail single-handedly around the world. At the age of 24, the British yachtswoman took second place in the Vendée Globe race when she arrived back at Les Sables d'Olonne on the western coast of France, 24,000 miles after she set out.
No fanfare, no fireworks, just an ecstatic punching of the air from Helen MacArthur as she passed the finishing line. For the statistically minded, it had taken her 94 days, 4 hours, 25 minutes and 40 seconds. Her first human contact came just a few moments after that. And then came yachting's equivalent of a lap of honour. Helen MacArthur, 24 years old, had cruised into the record books, the youngest, fastest woman to sail solo round the world. And the thousands who turned out to greet her had lived through every stage of this epic adventure. She'd given up her position to go to the aid of a fellow competitor. Her vessel was badly damaged when it hit a submerged container. She'd navigated past icebergs. But alongside, it was now ice champagne that she had to contend with.
It just feels like too much. It's like you can never imagine both to do the race and to be here right now. The best moment is probably right now, and the worst moment is going to be in about 30 seconds time when I have to get off the boat and walk up the pontoon, and I don't want to say goodbye to her.
But her relieved parents have no doubt that she'll be back on board a boat soon. When eventually the time did come to move onto the pontoon, her 5'2" frame quickly disappeared into the melee. You can be sure that dry land will be but a punctuation mark in Helen MacArthur's already extraordinary career. John Sopel, BBC News, the Sable d'Olonne.
Well, at a packed news conference afterwards, Ellen spoke about how she felt as she sailed over the finish line.
It was the most amazing experience of my life. To see so many people have come here just to see me, it almost felt like there should be someone standing behind me. And I almost felt in my own mind that they were here to see the boat and I was just the pilot, and it's her that sailed around the world. And I was just the lucky person to be on board her.
Helen MacArthur, well, it's been a long, demanding race for her, both physically and emotionally. Alistair Leathed now looks back at the highs and lows of the 24-year-old's 3-month sailing adventure.
A kiss for the first faces she'd seen for more than 3 months. Helen MacArthur could afford a smile as she coaxed the Kingfisher back into port on the final leg of the Vendée Globe race this afternoon. It had been an emotional farewell to her parents back in October, when she joined 23 other vessels for the start of a race renowned as one of the toughest and most dangerous in the world. She single-handedly had to sail a boat designed to be crewed by 12 people, 24,000 miles through the most treacherous seas and the most appalling conditions. Although the computers helped her plot a course, she couldn't afford the luxury of a night's sleep, relying instead on catnaps whenever she could to keep her going. Major challenge came in the Southern Ocean near Antarctica, when she changed course from the race route to help fellow sailor Yves Parlier, whose broken mast left him cast adrift. He managed to recover, and Ellen was able to get back on course. Then a close encounter with a towering iceberg left her shaken when her early warning radar failed to pick it up. And then a torn sail led her to spend a terrifying night up in the rigging, making emergency repairs. By this stage, the Kingfisher was in second place and closing on the hugely experienced race leader, Michel Desjoyeux, clawing back 600 miles from the Falklands to the equator. Then, on January the 30th, she led the race for one magical day. But as she was fighting for the lead, the Kingfisher struck a submerged container, which ripped off one of the dagger boards. There followed a terrible night of repairs amid high seas and one of the lowest points on the journey.
The boat's still a mess, but we have a dagger board again, and we're sailing pretty much 100%. And it's such a relief. That was the hardest thing I've had to do in the whole trip. I was so tired and had so little energy, and fighting with something so big and heavy as that was just, oh God, just too much.
With only a few hundred miles to go, the cable which strengthened the mast snapped. It could so easily have ended in disaster. But determined to the end, Helen MacArthur carefully coaxed her yacht over the finishing line and into the record books. Alistair Leathed, BBC News.
Well done to her. Scientists in Britain and America have released the latest draft of the complete human genome, the so-called Book of Life. One of the major surprises is that we each have between 30 and 40,000 genes. That's far fewer than was previously thought. It promises to revolutionize the treatment of some diseases and our ability to reverse genetic disorders.
These blobs of colour are a tiny part of the biological instruction manual to make a human being, our genetic code. Researchers here in Cambridge and the US are flabbergasted by their latest discovery, that we have just a few more genes than a mouse. But does that make understanding how humans work any easier?
We're that step nearer being able to look at all the component parts of the human body and figuring out what they do. And it's going to be a huge task. It's not actually magically simplified because we have somewhat fewer genes, because we still have to find out exactly how all of them work and how they're controlled.
So it's not the number of genes that's important, but how they interact. For example, 6-year-old Theo has an inherited genetic disorder, a fault in his genes, which may mean he'll never walk. But genome research may one day lead to improvements in his condition.
I can see it in the distance as something that could well happen in 5, 10 years' time. And I think I'm realistic in that, you know, maybe Theo could have some sort of treatment.
And scientists are confidently predicting a revolution in healthcare as a result of genetic research, and in virtually every field, but especially cancer.
I would be extremely surprised if children being born today did not have a much better chance of surviving their cancer than people of our generation. There will be a major transformation of cancer treatment over the next 20 years.
Scientists also now know that all humans are 99.8% genetically identical. What they still don't know is exactly how our genes work. There are 500 scientists here at this massive genome campus in Cambridge, piecing together the blueprint of human life, and thousands more in the United States. And bit by bit, it is giving up its secrets. It has awesome potential with regards to medical breakthroughs, but these will take, tantalizingly, the next 5 to 25 years to deliver. Fergus Walsh, BBC News, Cambridge.
Police say the bodies of 2 potholers have been discovered in a cave in North Yorkshire. They've been named as 29-year-old Julian Carroll from Tyne and Wear and Ray Lee from Darlington, who was 58. They were found near Mason Gill, close to the Lancashire border. They were reported missing by their families last night. Foreign Office officials have complained to Israel about the treatment of a British man who's being held in prison there. The man, Jihad Shuman, was arrested 5 weeks ago, but his detention has only just come to light. He's suspected of planning an attack for the Lebanese guerrilla organisation Hezbollah, but he denies the allegation. Here, the government is to tackle the shortage of secondary school teachers by paying off the student loans of graduates who train as maths and science teachers. But they would have to stay in the profession for 10 years to get their debt repaid in full. The Conservatives say that means the scheme won't act as an incentive.
As a specialist school, Middleton Technology College in Rochdale is central to Labour's second-term plans. But first, ministers must tackle teacher shortages. The latest idea is to write off the student loan debts of graduates who are willing to teach subjects like maths, English, science and languages. That could be worth up to £10,000.
We want to progressively write off the student loan over a 10-year period, so a tenth at a time, for those who stay in teaching. Obviously, the moment they leave teaching, then they start picking up the residual amount that's left over.
The Tories said it was just scratching the surface.
Paying teachers to train for the future isn't going to solve the problem we have of teacher shortages in our classrooms today. And the big problem we have today is that teachers are leaving the profession because of the bureaucracy that they're being burdened with by this government.
The Liberal Democrats, finalising their election policies this weekend, said it showed their opposition to student fees was right.
It's an admission of guilt that the loans are wrong. It's discriminating amongst different categories of potential teachers.
Middleton Technology College has suffered a fall in numbers applying for teacher jobs, and it struggles to find temporary staff. The head welcomes today's news, but says more is needed.
We'll still have problems recruiting teachers in areas of high housing costs, and so more will need to be done to support those staff, perhaps with a higher London allowance, perhaps with help with housing costs. And of course the conditions we work in are also very important.
Tomorrow, Labour will detail its long-term plans for secondary schools, including encouraging more of them to specialise and creating special programmes in the inner cities for gifted and talented young children. But ministers must be aware that none of this will work unless they have enough qualified teachers in specialist subjects. Mike Baker, BBC News at the Department for Education.
Police in Northern Ireland have seized a substantial number of devices believed to be components for pipe bombs. The items were found during searches of flats in the largely loyalist Mount Vernon area of North Belfast. There have been more than 50 pipe bomb attacks on Catholic families in Northern Ireland since the beginning of the year. The US Navy has widened the search for 9 people still missing after one of its submarines sank a Japanese trawler. 5 ships, 2 planes and 2 helicopters are taking part, but hopes are now fading in finding them. The captain of the USS Greenville has been relieved of his duties. Detectives in Grimsby have arrested a 3rd person following the death in a fire of a pensioner recently cleared of assaulting a 9-year-old girl. The body of 67-year-old Alfred Wilkins was found at his home on Friday. Humberside police are treating it as a murder inquiry. 81 animal rights protesters have been arrested at the offices of a pharmaceutical company in Stoke Poges in Buckinghamshire. The protesters were taking part in one of a number of coordinated demonstrations across southeast England. But Thames Valley Police say windows were smashed as the protesters tried to storm the building. A recording of a remarkable speech by Nelson Mandela, which he made nearly 40 years ago from the dock during his trial in South Africa, has only just come to light. The whole trial was recorded, but it was thought it could no longer be replayed because the equipment was obsolete. But technicians from the British Library have now come to the rescue.
Pretoria, April the 20th, 1964. Nelson Mandela is on trial for his life. His 3-hour speech has often been quoted, but it was thought no recording existed. In fact, a transcription tape was gathering dust in the archives. The challenge was how to get it to play again. The so-called Rivonia trial focused world attention on apartheid. Mandela's final plea before sentencing would echo down his 34 years of imprisonment.
During my lifetime, I have dedicated my life to this struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination.
Salvaging the tapes involved heating and flattening them. It was a highly specialised job.
But it is a format which isn't meant for broadcast. It's a format that's meant to merely note-taking, and I think it's pretty remarkable the quality that we've managed to retrieve from it.
The apartheid struggle was violent and prolonged, but Mandela in his cell never wavered. He demanded freedom and democracy for all South Africans.
It is an ideal for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
Today is the 11th anniversary of Mandela's release from prison, an apt moment for his famous words to put in a reappearance. Jackie Rowley, BBC News.
This is BBC News 24, still to come. Children who've achieved success against all the odds are rewarded for their courage.
The weather, constantly changing, difficult to predict. BBC News 24 weather updates, also constantly changing, but at 27 and 57 minutes past every hour, very easy to predict. BBC News 24 weather updates, twice an hour, every hour.
It is 1:45, the headlines. Helen MacArthur celebrates at the end of her grueling 24,000-mile solo sail. She's taken 2nd place in the Vendée Globe race. International researchers have published more details about the genetic makeup of all human beings. They say humans have fewer genes than scientists previously thought. Science, maths and language teachers could have part of their student debt written off under new proposals to encourage more people into teaching. All those stories soon, but first today's sports news with Shelley Webb.
Hello, there was an exciting climax to snooker's B&H Masters final when Paul Hunter staged a superb comeback to beat Fergal O'Brien by 10 frames to 9 at the Wembley Conference Centre in London.
Both Fergal O'Brien and Paul Hunter were making their first appearances in a Masters final, and so it was hardly surprising that they failed to produce their best snooker in the opening exchanges. It was O'Brien who settled the quickest early on. A combination of some confident long potting and his opponent's unforced errors enabled him to take a 5 frames to 1 lead. Hunter took frame 7 with a timely break of 51, only for him to make the decisive error in frame 8 after a long exchange of safety to allow O'Brien to end the afternoon 6-2 in front. The opening 2 frames of the evening session were shared before an error from O'Brien gifted his opponent frame 11. It was the stroke of luck the Yorkshireman needed. A break of 129 in the 12th reduced the deficit to 7-5, and when he repeated the dose in the next, he was suddenly only 1 frame adrift. O'Brien took frame 14, only for Hunter to hit back straight away, and when the 22-year-old from Leeds equalled the highest break of the tournament with a 16th frame 136, it was snooker of the very highest order. Not that Hunter was finished there. He duly edged ahead for the first time in the match with a quick-fire 132. O'Brien, though, was not to be beaten without a fight. A tense 18th frame saw the Dubliner hold his nerve to force the decider. And it was a frame of high tension, which included a 10-minute spell without a ball being potted, before O'Brien faltered to allow Hunter to be crowned the champion. Simon Foth, BBC News.
Well, on to football now, and Celtic are 11 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premier League after their 1-0 win over rivals Rangers at Parkhead. Celtic's lead now looks unassailable after Alan Thompson's goal proved enough for victory. But despite recording their second Old Firm win in a week, Celtic manager Martin O'Neill refuses to say the race is won.
It's been a fantastic week for us. Gives a great boost, and I mean it also gives us a bit of a cushion as well too, you know, but by my reckoning I still know that we can win another 8 games and still not be assured of winning the championship, so it's far from over. It's been terrific today, and delighted to have won the game, and all credit to the players, deserve everything they've got.
And also in the SPL, Kilmarnock beat St Johnstone 2-1 at McDermott Park. Craig Dargo opened the scoring for the visitors, Paddy Connolly with the equaliser, but Killy secured the points through Peter Canero on the stroke of full time. Well, in the English Premiership, Charlton have moved up to 7th place after a 2-0 win over Newcastle at the Valley. Matthias Svensson and Sean Bartlett with the goals for Alan Kirbishley's side. And in the second division, leaders Millwall are now 4 points clear at the top after being held to a 0-0 draw at Swansea's Vetchfield. Well, on to Rugby League, and there was a shock in the 4th round of the Challenge Cup. Lee of the Northern Ford Premiership came from behind to beat Super League Salford at Hilton Park.
In recent years, a 4th round tie in the Challenge Cup has been little more than a pre-season friendly for a Super League side drawn against Premiership opposition. And this game didn't look to be any different when Salford's Warren Jowett got his first try for the club inside 5 minutes. Steve Blakely added the goal, and the Reds, who were wearing blue, were up and running at 6-0. Salford doubled their lead with a second Jowett try and a second Blakely goal. A comfortable passage into the 5th round was on the cards, but Lee's team talk at half-time must have done the trick. In a 5-minute spell after the break, first Paul Anderson slid over the whitewash, and then Neil Turley touched down. Game on, and Lee were again hopeful of extending an unbeaten run that's seen them win 8 out of 8 at the start of their league campaign. The comeback was complete and the victory sealed when joint skipper Adam Bristow crossed the line 10 minutes from time. A Super League club has been knocked out of the cup by a side from outside the top division for the first time in 4 years, and that's a lifetime to some fans. Colin Harrison, BBC News.
And after the draw for the Challenge Cup 5th round, Lee will be out for another top-flight sculp as they play at Warrington, while Cup favourites St Helens face opposition from outside the Super League as they travel to either Gateshead or Whitehaven. And that's all the sport from us for now.
Shelley, thank you very much indeed. The Chief of the Defence Staff, General Sir Charles Guthrie, has said he believes the United States will reduce its military role in Europe under President Bush. Speaking to the BBC before he retires later this week, Sir Charles said Europe must increase its armed strength as America becomes increasingly involved in other regions. Thank you.
British and Italian troops training in Kosovo. Firing his last salvos before retiring this week, Britain's top soldier says Europe needs to do far more in its own defence. He said Europeans have nothing to be proud of and have been relying on NATO out of weakness. The new American administration has other priorities.
But the Americans are going to be preoccupied
in lots of things around the world which we don't want to get involved in, and there will be some things in Europe which they don't want to. And I think they're going to do less. If we don't do more, they're going to do much less. I don't think we will ever close the gap completely, but I think we can do more, which will be of great help to the alliance.
Sir Charles leaves a very different army from the one he joined 44 years ago. Women are now being tested for a front-line fighting role, the only significant job still close to them. The outgoing Chief of the Defence Staff is strongly opposed.
The Chiefs of Staff have this job of making sure that our country has the best possible forces for when times are really bad, when people are being killed, when people are frightened. And I wonder whether the country is really ready to see women killed.
Socially conservative but subtle over European defence, Sir Charles Guthrie has been unusually willing to speak his mind in public. David Loyne, BBC News.
150 children who've all achieved success against huge odds have been rewarded for their achievements at a ceremony in London. The youngsters were selected from thousands of entries for their courage in fighting illnesses and helping others. The ceremony was attended by a host of celebrities, including the Falklands War veteran Simon Weston and the former Prime Minister John Major.
One of the most prestigious children's awards ceremonies, today's event at London's Hilton Hotel honoured 150 young people who were all more than worthy of the title Child of Achievement. Famous faces from television, theatre and politics were invited as guests of honour, but the real stars of the show were the award winners themselves.
The children today are a huge inspiration to everyone. Their own stories, it's a chance today to recognise them as exceptional young people, but it's also a chance for many people out there to look at these youngsters and be inspired.
One of the winners was 14-year-old Errol Flynn. His severe cerebral palsy never stopped him from communicating in his own way. But at home in the South Wales valleys, Errol's now learned to use a complex electronic communication aid, which gives the teenager a voice.
A lot of children who have handicaps don't get any recognition really, but this is something outstanding.
Every one of the children chosen for an award is special, either because they've overcome illness or disability or because they've helped others. It's hoped that by celebrating their achievements in this way, others will be inspired to do the same. Louise Elliott, BBC News.
So, just 6 years after she bought her first boat, Helen MacArthur has become the youngest and fastest woman to sail around the world. She had to battle for 2 months, struggling with torn sails, surviving a near-fatal accident, and making emergency repairs to her boat. Let's look back over that epic voyage. Well done to Ellen. Now let's take a quick look at the latest weather here in the UK with Joe Price. Joe.
A very good morning to you. Well, throughout Sunday we saw this trailing weather front which brought quite a lot of rain through northern parts of England, also central England, down through Wales and southern parts of Ireland. Now that is set to continue throughout today's picture. It will gradually move down towards the southeast. We can actually see that developing and slipping off towards the near continent. What we get behind it is some good news. A ridge of high pressure building for Tuesday into Wednesday. Thursday and Friday we still keep that area of high pressure, so that basically means we've got a lot of dry, fine and bright weather on the way. What we will get perhaps on Wednesday and Thursday is a system building out across the west, and that's actually how it looks by the end of the week, which means a thickening of cloud and perhaps the odd spot of rain or two. But for the time being we've got quite a few spots of rain throughout the overnight picture and into this morning. Well, as I mentioned, that will steadily move southwards and eastwards throughout the morning picture, and by lunchtime today it's just clipping there through East Anglia down towards the south coast. So wee word of warning on that rainfall we are expecting throughout the night and later on this morning for central and northern England and Wales. Up to 50 millimetres, which is a good inch and a half, could still fall, leading to localised flooding of course, but we'll put some fine tuning on that for you. So later on this morning there's that band of rain and cloud, bit of a north-south split, isn't it? What we might get into the Western Isles and Northern Isles of Scotland is just some blustery showers there, quite windy. Also quite windy along this south coast, but misty, murky conditions there with that rainfall. Ahead of that, a dry and bright prospect through Ireland, across the borders there into Scotland. Later on, around about lunchtime today, we'll see that rain slipping further down towards the near continent, so running through Lincolnshire down towards the Midlands and along that south coast into the southeast. Later on it just clips the Kent and Sussex coastlines before it slips off across the Channel. This afternoon though, temperatures will feel really quite pleasant if you are out and about. At best in Scotland between 5 and 8 degrees Celsius, and down towards central and southern parts of England, you're looking through the Channel Islands around about 11 degrees Celsius. We'll feel a wee bit fresher than we felt on Sunday. Now for Tuesday what we've got again, as I mentioned, this high pressure building, a lot of dry and fine weather on the way, but also in those clear skies by Tuesday night you might just see some frost returning, so do take care if you're perhaps planning to go out and about on Tuesday into Wednesday. Also we'll get some drizzly rain into the far northern parts of Scotland and some southwesterly gales. They continue into Wednesday, perhaps with a thickening of the cloud and the odd spot of rain out across western parts of Ireland on Wednesday. Still a lot of sunshine about, and it remains actually for Thursday, just with this weak weather system moving eastwards throughout the day.
Sport is all about timing. Miss it and you miss out. BBC News 24 sports updates are at 16 and 35 minutes past every hour, so you'll always know the score. All the main sports stories twice an hour. BBC News 24.